Well, to start this afternoon, I'd like to thank Eber and Mr. Saunders for putting this opportunity together where we could explain what we've been doing for the last number of years and why we took the approach that we did take. I want to explain how we started, but also and what we were doing, but I also like to explain what we wouldn't do and the reasons why, and some of the roles of employers, unions, and educational institutions, what they're doing or not doing, which slowed down the progress of what we considered a common sense strategy that will engage Aboriginal people to compete equally and fairly for Saskatchewan and Canada's job opportunity. And when we started, what we looked at, and started means 1993, Bill Anderson told me today, it was around then that we were having discussions with organized labor. What we wanted to do was we looked at what government was doing, and we tried not to do that because it didn't appear to be working. So to start with, we wanted to have an approach that involved the Aboriginal community. The three areas that we started with were employment, economic, and cultural development. Those are the areas that we started to build partnerships on. We didn't want to be unilateral and say, here's what you must do. And we certainly didn't want to force employers to hire Aboriginal people that if they weren't qualified, all that would do was promote racism within the workplace. What we wanted was to find some employers of choice for Aboriginal people because we couldn't find a workplace in Saskatchewan that was even near representative of Aboriginal people. So healthcare is right. We picked a sector that we felt would be more holistic because healthcare at the time, I think, had 47,000 staff. The skill range was from grade 8 to 8 years university. So in the short term, we had people that had those skills. In the longer term, we could get people ready. And we felt it would be a good sector that would start to be a prototype or a role model employer for other sectors. I can tell you that when we did go to these various workplaces, including organized labor and healthcare, we were asked to leave of all workplaces. They didn't want to deal with us. And I had well, over the years, we've heard many excuses. That's why we learned to move forward, is we had to figure out how to get around the excuses that employers put forward not to participate in this initiative. So we heard everything when we were in Prince Albert, excuses like, Wayne, I can't find natives in PA. I used to use that joke, Stevie Wonder could find natives in PA. We heard stories from educational institutions that, Wayne, your people aren't qualified. And I would say, well, then you should be shut down because you've been stealing our money for years. And Aboriginal people have been paying their educational fees, and the employer hasn't even had the decency to request that maybe they should consider working for that workplace. So, and the other one is that when we signed these partnership agreements, what we were trying to do was to ask employers to quit minding the business of Aboriginal people and say, we're going to hire 10 of you. You aren't going to hire none of us unless that community gets itself ready. And the argument was, quit giving the responsibility of everything that needs to be done to become representative, and I'll explain representative in a minute. Quit putting all the onus, well, we'll hire 5 of you, or well, we need 3 tradespeople. What we told them was, why don't you work on getting your workplace ready? Why don't you make sure this principle, that you don't provide an unfair advantage to one community over another? Which means, why am I being offered quota if I got merit and you've been offered 100% access with your merit? That's an unfair advantage. And if I'm wrong, then we'd ask the question. People told me, don't cut up these programs that government has put forward that have never proved results in the history of the program, and I notice they still don't cut those programs because they can live behind them, is that these initiatives, I couldn't find one workplace where Aboriginal people are represented. And even today in government, if you look, the only place that Aboriginal people participate is areas of Aboriginal trouble. Almost exclusively, they work in Aboriginal affairs, Northern affairs, resource management, fighting forest fires, corrections, healthcare, social services. But when I challenge and I say, let's go to protocol office, let's go to ECDEV, let's go to Ag and Food, and tell me how many Aboriginal people work there, and why don't they work there? Why isn't all the government, the crowns, the private sector, or not the private sector, universities, colleges, why aren't they accessible to Aboriginal people? And I'll give you an argument which we don't use. Aboriginal people, we don't use this. I'm a Métis person, you're First Nation. When you get off that reserve, you pay 100% taxes. The question I ask you, which nobody stands up and fights for it, is why is it that I pay my taxes to the government takes that money, hands it back to universities, community colleges, healthcare, crown corporations, government departments, and with our own money, they've been able to shut the doors to our community, except for selective access. They tell us how many, and they tell us where. This is the argument that we put forward when we started with these partnerships. We said, we don't want to tell you what to do. We'll sign in principle, we'll negotiate process. The process will be, we'll figure out strategies together that once we agree, we think are deliverable. Strategies like employment. We don't want to know you need 2 secretaries and a doctor on Friday. It doesn't give us time to get organized. We don't want to know about your vacancies. What we need to know is what is every position in the workplace? What are the skills that are required? Let Aboriginal people choose which ones they want to go after. As a matter of fact, when's the president quitting? Because maybe we want to get people ready to be the leadership. And that's really what started with the word representative, is that we wanted to have people not just at entry level, middle management and senior management positions. And maybe they can't get there today or in 5 years from now. But the ones that are in school got to have hope that I can be ahead of the Crown Corporation, I can be ahead of the union, I can be ahead of the university, I can be ahead of the community college. You can be whatever you want to be, not what the government wants you to be or where they want you to be. So our arguments were on the representative workforce. Tell us what you hire, tell us what you buy, tell us what the skills required. Aboriginal people, you can do 2 things now if we can get that. You can do nothing or you can get ready. If we're given the chance and we do nothing, certainly immigration is going to come. But we need to have the chance. And so what are the resources? And what Larry forgot to explain or didn't explain, maybe he didn't know this, but when SIP was hired to do that study, there was another thing that was hired. This is for the non-Aboriginal taxpayers, by the way. We asked them, how much money is being spent now to keep 8 out of 10 Aboriginal people at home today under or unemployed? I said, I want you to check out 3 departments. Social services, justice, and social service, justice, and Indian affairs. So we went to the 3. He came back with this number. Every year we spend $509 million a year to keep 8 out of 10 Aboriginal people at home. How did we figure that out? Participation rate says 47%. So for sure, 1 out of 2 Aboriginal people are unemployed. And then I said, from that 47%, tell me how many people have a job that can actually feed a family? They said 20%. This is Stats Canada. So what it means to me is 8 out of 10 then Aboriginal people are under or unemployed. And the government is spending $509 million to keep us at home a year from the positive money that we have collectively.